we're still applauding after the full day today. I know this is going to be a great session as well. On a day where we have had so many powerful women, it's my pleasure to introduce the next. Our next speaker has been designated as one of the 100 most powerful women by Forbes magazine on a number of occasions. Sri Mulyani Indrawati is the managing director of the World Bank Group. She's been in that position since 2010, and she oversees the bank's operations in all the regions of the world. Previously, she served as Indonesia's Minister of Finance and Coordinator for Economic Affairs, and at that point, she guided that country's economic policy, navigating successfully the global economic crisis, implementing key reforms, and fighting corruption. She's also credited with helping to steer Indonesia through the transition from autocracy to democracy. Before that, she led the Indonesian National Development Planning Agency, and at that point, she was charged with helping Indonesia recover from the devastating 2004 tsunami. And she was also executive director at the International Monetary Fund. Her efforts and her dedication have not gone unnoticed internationally. In 2006, she was named Euromoney magazine's Global Finance Minister of the Year, and Emerging Markets newspaper selected her as Asia's best finance minister for 2 years in a row. I am delighted to say that she's going to speak to us this afternoon on issues related to security, democracy, and development. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sri Mulyani Indrawati.
Thank you, Don, for a very generous introduction. I've been invited today to speak about security, development, and democracy. As the introductory remark, you may ask, what is the Managing Director of the World Bank and former Finance Minister of Indonesia have to say about this issue? To be honest, it's quite a lot. I will try to share with you this afternoon. At the World Bank, I've been tasked to oversee work in 187 countries in 6 diverse regions, so basically the whole bank operation. Several of these countries are making transition to democracy, just like Indonesia back in 1998, 1997. Actually, if you look at the history of Indonesia, it's supposed to be back in 1950, but we are then under the authoritarian government for almost 30 years. And then we have this reformasi, we call it in Indonesia, which is actually adopting again the new real democracy. So just like in Indonesia, which is about 1.5 decades ago. Many of these countries which is transition to the democracy are classified as middle income, also like Indonesia today. In my work, lessons learned from Indonesia often come to my mind. You cannot blame, because the story of Indonesia is really my university on public policy making process, as well as really understanding about the real challenge and complication of development. My work over several years as academic, as an activist, and as policy maker leads me to 3 observations on the topic of today's discussion: security, democracy, and development. My first observation is that the lack of security is a serious obstacle to development. I think this is obvious, but I would like to give you some of the supporting facts. As noted in World Development Report 2011, over 1.5 billion people in the world live in situations of fragility, conflict, or large-scale organized crime. This makes the lack of security one of the primary development challenges for our time. The fact that no low-income, fragile, or conflict-affected country has yet to achieve a single Millennium Development Goal is actually a testimony to the above, to the havoc that is brought by insecurity. It is for this reason that the World Bank, along with other partner agencies, is closely engaged with national reformers in building the basic institution for security in fragile and post-conflict situations. To break the cycle of insecurity and reduce the risk of their recurrence, national reformers and their international partners need to build the legitimate institution that can provide a sustained level of citizen security, justice, and job, offering a stake in society to groups that may otherwise receive more respect and recognition from engaging in armed violence. But is this enough? My answer to this is no. This leads to my second observation. While development needs security, without democracy, it is not sustainable. This is the experience from my own country, Indonesia. In 1998, Indonesia ended 3 decades of rule by President Suharto then. These 3 decades has seen a strong growth, leading to increasing material standard of living and poverty reduction to many millions of Indonesia. So Indonesia was actually seen as a poster boy or poster country, including even what you call it, the East Asian miracle back in 1980s. As a head of economic and social research at the University of Indonesia at that time, back in Jakarta in the mid-1990s, I was expected, of course, to be loyal to the government and to actually work and support. But like many of the younger colleagues, which are actually benefiting from the progress being made under President Suharto's time, I had begun to question the wisdom of economic success without justice, accountability, and inclusion, and began to speak out in the media and protest rallies. This is why was at the Senayan, that is our parliamentary building in Jakarta, on the mid-May 1998. I was there not far from the security forces who shot 4 students. You could say that that moment was my Tahrir Square moment, using the current terms of Tahrir moment in Arab Spring. This pattern has been repeated many times, in which you have a quite impressive development achievement, but lack of accountability, inclusiveness, and transparency. I saw this pattern again in the Arab Spring last year with the demand for justice, inclusion, and accountability. And with spread of information technology, social accountability, and a more transparent global environment, I expect such movement to grow. This is why I believe that democracy is needed to sustain development. Each country, certainly in the midst of this transition, will face unique challenges and require a different solution. Correcting injustice and building an economy that offers opportunity to all and treating all people equally are major challenges. There are no one-size-fits-all solution, and there are no one, what you call it, a pattern of sequencing that can be applied. My own experience, sometimes you are so excited with this democracy, and then you suffer a little bit setback, and especially in related to my third observation. The common element to all successful approaches is through the building of effective and accountable public institutions. These institutions are the lifeblood which allow development and especially democracy to deliver the promise that is the people prosperity. This brings me to my third observation. While development cannot proceed without security and it needs democracy, it cannot be sustained unless there is an effective public institution or good governance for support. And this is what is actually the struggle, because good governance mean clear rule, laws, and policy, a disciplined civil service with the capacity to implement policy as intended, a transparent budget process that allocates public resource according to priority, oversight mechanism to monitor official action, and the ability of individuals to seek effective redress when impartiality is not respected. That will take a long time. Institution building is actually the core challenge of development. And this can only be built through a quite long process. A system of good governance encompasses a multitude of actors: government agency, formal oversight institution, subnational government, especially for a country as big as Indonesia, and I'm sure many countries who has the size. The subnational local government capacity, especially in delivering development program, is very, very critical. And certainly also local communities, civil society, private sector, and political actors and institutions. In a well-functioning system, accountability relationship between these different actors help ensure that public policy support development, that services are delivered efficiently and equitably, and that corruption is held in check. I know corruption is not a problem of the low-income country or developing country, it's a problem everywhere. But whether this can be held in check with the system which is actually established in each country. Every country will have to find its own way of building strong institutions that support the development process. All this introductory remark, which is read by Don, is actually my struggle of 5 years in the cabinet of Indonesia after reformasi, is really struggling of building the sound and clean institution at the Ministry of Finance. And I can give you a very long talk about that, more than 1 hour, of how very interesting, challenging, complicated, but it's not impossible. This is something that takes time, of course, and you cannot have a good institution overnight or even over a year. If you talk about Arab Spring, today is already a year, and everybody now start asking and questioning where it will lead those countries in actually leading this democracy that will deliver the promise, that is prosperity, accountability, transparency, and inclusiveness. The good news is that countries actually now can learn faster by reflecting on their own experience, but also by learning from the experience of other countries. Good experience from elsewhere offer lessons. Bad experience also offer lessons, if nothing else, on what not to do. At the World Bank, in this case, we believe that we can become more effective by helping countries share their experience with each other. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with my 3 observations. Development without security is elusive. Development with security is difficult to sustain without democracy. And both development and democracy need the effective public institution in order to take root and thrive. Thank you very much.